They said God would take care of you. But when your own father sold your soul to the church for a handful of silver, you learned fast that God doesn't bargain with hunger. This is the story of a girl who never chose her faith, but was buried alive in it. You were born in medieval England in the year 1240 AD. Your father was married to ale more than duty. He loved his 5 daughters in his own drunken way, but love didn't fill bellies or pay dowries. You were 15, young, radiant, and cursed with beauty. The village whispered your name. Even a king's general noticed you, a man old enough to be your father, promising marriage if only your family could afford the dowry. But your father had already traded gold for beer and dowries for regret. And when he heard that the church paid to take in poor girls as nuns, he saw salvation, not for you, but for his debts. That night he kissed your forehead and said, "God will take care of you, love, and with this silver, I'll take care of myself." By morning, you were gone, dragged by men of the church, your long hair hacked off before the crowd, each lock falling like pieces of the life you'd never get back. They wrapped you in rough black cloth that stank of mold, and when you caught your reflection in a brass tray, the girl you knew had vanished. At the convent, you expected prayer, peace, maybe even grace. Instead, the priest shoved the stiff brush into your blistering hands. "Scrub every inch of this church before nightfall," he barked. "God sees effort. Don't disappoint him." You scrubbed until your knees bled against cold stone, your back screaming under candlelight. When dawn came, the priest said only, "Amateur work. Wake at 4. No excuses." Sleep became a sin, dreams a memory. At 4, the bells rang again. You knelt for 7 hours in prayer, while your stomach knotted itself into silence. You saw an apple by the altar, gleaming like heaven itself. You reached out, and a cane struck your hand. "No food. 3-day fast. Purify your soul," they said. You weren't sure which hurt worse, hunger or holiness. Nights were colder than faith. You slept on bare stone wrapped in curtain scraps. Wind howled through the cracks. Rats scurried closer than friends. You whispered to the ceiling, "Is this your plan, God, or theirs?" No answer came, only silence, and the sound of your heart learning how to break quietly. One winter morning, you found a dying peasant boy outside the gates, his skin blue, lips cracked, eyes pleading. Without thinking, you stole a few apples from the storeroom and fed him. For the first time in years, you felt human again. But mercy has witnesses. The senior abbess caught you, spit in disgust, and screamed, "Thief! You've stolen God's fruit for a beggar!" You tried to explain. "He would have died. Better he die than you dishonor the convent." They dragged you to the priest. 10 days without food," he declared. "Let your stomach starve with your sin." Your heart sank, until another voice broke through the silence. A visiting high priest, draped in gold and silk, smiled and said, "Mercy to the poor is mercy to God. She should be pardoned." You almost cried with relief. But mercy in that world always came with a price. That night, in the dark corridor, he found you. "You owe me," he whispered. You froze. "Owe me what?" He smiled. "Your silence, your body. God forgives sins. I forgive punishments." You begged. You tried to run. But he took what was never his. And that night, your vow of chastity wasn't broken. It was stolen. And you lay on the cold floor staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering if even God turned his eyes away. Weeks later, they dragged you before the villagers. "Confess your sins," the priest roared. You opened your mouth to tell the truth, but his voice thundered over yours. So you confessed to everything you never did. Lust, pride, disobedience. The crowd gasped, crossed themselves, satisfied. Then came the whip. "Punish yourself for God." You struck your back again and again, until blood bloomed through your habit and mercy bled out of you. Months later, your belly began to swell. You knew whose sin this was, but the convent called you whore, heretic, devil's bride. You cried, "It wasn't my choice." The priest shouted, "Silence! You are cursed!" They stripped you of robes and dignity and threw you into the streets. When you went home, your father slammed the door in your face. You failed God. You failed us. You're no daughter of mine. Even tears froze on your cheeks before they hit the ground. You begged for food, slept in barns beside pigs. Even beggars mocked you. And when the Black Death crept through England, you had nowhere to run. The nobles fled. You stayed, burying the dead, washing the sick, and coughing blood into your own hands. Your body was too weak to fight, too broken to care. You begged for water, for mercy, for someone to call you by name again. No one came. When you died, they didn't pray, didn't bury. They tossed your body on a cart full of plague corpses and dumped you into the sea. Nameless, forgotten, swallowed by waves and silence. So the next time someone tells you that medieval times were full of romance, faith, and chivalry, remind them of her. The girl who was sold for ale, stripped for God, and buried by plague. Because sometimes it didn't just suck to be poor, or female, or forgotten. Sometimes it sucked harder to be holy.